Hello, everyone, and welcome to Industry Perspectives. I'm your host, Ainsley Bowden, and on this chat episode, we're going to be speaking with the head of lordsofgaming.net, Cognito. Now, Cog and I met a few years ago, and since then, we've shared so many stories about our past and upbringing within gaming, the culture, arcades, the industry, what it's like to run a platform, and so many more things. We're going to touch on a wealth of those things today, so let's dive in. And bringing back industry perspectives for 2021, one of my favorite content creators on the planet, Mr. Lord Cognito himself. Welcome, sir.
Ains, man. Thank you, brother, man. Fantastic thing you got going on here, man. I couldn't wait to be a part of this. Loving the logo, by the way. It's pretty
thanks.
Cool, man.
Yeah, you know that's Diego. You know that's Diego hooking us up.
I had to submit my resume, man. Yeah, you killing it, man. But yeah, this is cool. I'm honored to be selected. One of the first to be a part of this. I love what you're doing with Season Gaming, and I think this is positive. And man, let's have some fun. Let's talk about these games and these experiences, man.
No doubt. You know we can talk games all day, all night. So we'll see how long this goes. we need a third party to come in and cut us off.
Your disclaimer already.
So yeah, man. So I mean, you know, you and I have talked quite a lot offline, of course, around just gaming history and the culture and what it meant to us growing up. And it's always fascinating talking to people like yourself who come from the same era, right? Because it's different today. Yeah. It's not saying it's worse, not saying it's better. It's just different. Mm-hmm. And I think that, you know, the era that we grew up in when the only form of communication you really had about games was talking to your friends and waiting for that gaming magazine to come every month. That, you know, the news was already 3 months old at that point. You know how that goes. Yep. So, you know, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was, you know, from a gaming culture perspective, one of the things I think often about is growing up through that era where everyone was face to face and you interacted, you know, whether it be at one of your friends' house, you know, you had to go pick up your bike, walk, whatever, however you got there, you know, or you met in the arcade, of course, you know, in the arcade era is a whole different thing. But, you know, I look at kids today, like my son, for example, and he games online every day. He has a group of friends, Discord, you know, PC, Xbox, etc. You know how it goes nowadays. You think that, you know, I get the feeling that as cool as it is today and as convenient as it is, I think there's a part of the culture that's lost nowadays. I just don't feel the same level of kind of like, I don't know if it's the right word, but maybe intimacy that you got, and camaraderie maybe is a better word, with your friends that you had when we were growing up, when you were shoulder to shoulder and, you know, teasing each other or, just, shit talking, for lack of a better word, but you know what I mean.
I was going to go in that route too.
I mean, what are your thoughts on the era today compared to, you know, when we grew up and what it's like?
Yeah, man, you're making a lot of valid points, Ains. And like, for me, it's a combination of what you said. It's the arcade scene, you know, and then obviously on the console side. But on the arcade scene, it was definitely that camaraderie, the arcade first kind of, that was in a way our like internet to see how the industry was advancing from a technology standpoint with games.
That's a great point. Because the hardware was so much more advanced than what we were playing at home. Yeah. Good
so
point.
You would go there, and whenever the new units would come out at your local arcade or whatever you used to go to, that would be the first thing. So the big part about the social aspect was huge because, you know, one, I think the existence of co-op local, right? You know, you and your friend. I remember, like, you know, me and my friend playing Bad Dudes or Final Fight and
Contra, maybe
Contra. You automatically have these real life connections with people.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And then the same thing, you know, I remember in the fighting game community was huge deal. Street Fighter comes out, Mortal Kombat, these things come out, Tekken. I'm a big Tekken guy, you know, and the thing about it is it also kind of forged you in fire because, you know, you have the intimidation factor of actually the person right there that you're
Exactly.
fighting. And I've got stories for days of people who were like very disrespectful in the arcade. And I'll give you a quick one. Like it was a guy I was really good at Tekken. I got to the point where I was competing. I was in forums and people knew about me and they were like, hey, you're like my first character. I used to take Li Xiaolang, and then I was really good with Harang, the Taekwondo character when Tekken 3 came out. But people would be like, yo, there were forums and they were like, hey, these arcades were where the top players play.
Okay.
And I would go to these places, and it was almost like the Wild Wild West, like a Bruce Lee type situation, and guys would step up, like, okay, I see what you did there, put their quarter up, I got next, and then I was fighting this guy who's before I got there, he had when you get to the arcade and you'll see 10 wins.
Oh yeah, 9, the win tracker was a badge of honor. Badge of honor.
Huge. And you've seen it and you're like, yo, this guy's real. And in the back, I'm analyzing the styles. I'm seeing,
of course,
okay, what is he doing? That kind of thing. Then when I get up,
that tells me you were good, because it's a fact though, right? When two players are playing and there's 6, 10, whatever quarters up on the thing, the good players were actively paying attention to every single detail of what was going on that screen.
You had to study, and it was one of those things. I'm like, okay, kind of got an idea what he is, and I know my character. I felt it was a good matchup, and in the first round, like he beats me, but it was close. So he had his girl with him, and then he's like blowing kisses to his girl.
Oh no, that's disrespectful.
So I was like, okay, and now mind you, I had Kai Batsu with me. Shout out to Kai Batsu. He was with me this day. He knows this name.
All right.
So I was like, okay. So then you got mental toughness, composure, competition right there. This is pressure bust pipes. And there's a circle of people around you guys, right? And people know my reputation. So this creates the scene.
That's where the ninja was born.
You already know. So I'm doing my thing and I beat him and I turn to Kai Batsu and I go, and he starts laughing. And it threw the guy off. So now you're talking about the mental game.
Yeah, now he's pissed. Yeah,
exactly. So from a competitive standpoint, it is so much fun. And I gotta shout out King. I gotta give King a lot of credit for me being a good gamer.
Okay.
Because y'all see King as he is now. And y'all know that mouth. And y'all know how funny he is. It's not only he was good, he's funny. So you dread losing to this man.
You never hear the end of it.
The jokes.
Yeah.
And then while King is such a mastermind, he would be fighting and talking to you at the same time. So you got this. If you're not mentally strong, you are getting broken down and embarrassed. And once he got you, he got you. He knows what button to push. So for a while he was terrorizing us and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? But I remember when Tekken was my comeuppance. Okay, and then he was like, Cog, I can't. Like, he's on another level right now. I had to go through that. So once I would survive King, no one can surpass his level of ish talking and just everything he does. So again, that was the first aspect. And then the second aspect, bringing it back as far as the console, was just, again, like the camaraderie, people coming over, just getting into games and watching and like, again, games like Halo. These are the games that like kind of forge you from a cooperative and also a competitive standpoint. Just so many things. I think what it is socially. I think again, not to be like back in our day, we always had
that's gonna happen.
But the reality is, we develop better social skills because you really are working together with someone, or you're really competing with someone.
Yeah.
Bonds are formed, friendships are formed. You go to the arcade or whatever, or people who are non-gamers will watch you and they're like, wow, I want to try. Hey, man, go give it a shot. And you just have these brotherhood, these moments. Yeah. And honestly, that's how our Lord podcast was kind of founded, because at the end of the day, shout out to Mama Cog, like she allowed me to have 7 to 10 people on my house in the South Bronx on a Saturday from like 3 in the afternoon to about midnight. It was crazy. I know I drove her crazy. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the game,
you don't think about it at the time though, because my mom was the same way.
It was unreal. Okay.
Yeah, no, you're good. A couple things I want to touch on that you said, which brought back memories for me, is mom. First of all, shout out to moms.
Shout out to Bob.
Because my mom raised me pretty much solely and didn't have a lot of money. Started with that Sega Master System, as we've talked about, right? But we had this. I lived in townhouses outside of Philly, in Delaware, basically right on the border. And we had a group of kids in that neighborhood that were, probably 8 or 10 of us, to your point. And once you built that camaraderie, we were together all day, every day. It was
absolutely.
You went to sleep, you woke up, and you checked the time to make sure it wasn't before like 7 or 8 a.m. And then you called your buddies, and you all got back together and did it again, right?
Absolutely.
And that I think is what's missing, because there's kids today that I grew up with in that circle of friends that I've connected with through social media today, who still reminisce around coming to my house, playing Genesis, playing whatever it is, whatever game we used to play and hang out and do. And I don't see that same level of connection in the online space. I've developed online friends, don't get me wrong, plenty of them, that I've just met on Xbox or Dreamcast going back, or, wherever. And we've stayed in touch and still play games together. But it's not the same.
I agree. And to expound on your point, you make a fantastic point as far as consoles and playing together with friends, because the other thing that I think is missing is that at the time, like I said, I wasn't making a lot of money. So I had my math system, my Coleco that my dad gave me. Nice. My math system was like my first little, I think it was like I'm going to say my mom's or my grandparents, like a graduation from elementary school gift. It was some type of gift. Okay. You know what I'm saying? The first system with my own money was Genesis. But the point I'm trying to make is that, it was a time when, when you probably had that one console, whatever, but your friend may have, the NES. Of course. My other friend had the TurboGrafx. So of course, they were fanboy wars, sort of, but not to that extent, because at the end of the day, it became, come over to my house so you could come check this out.
Oh, you plotted how to work together to play everything. Absolutely.
That's what it was. And then you'd go to the retail, right? Yep. And you go, hey, because you don't make a lot of money. So like, okay, I'm gonna pick up this. I'm picking up Revenge of Shinobi for Genesis. I'm picking up this. Okay, you're picking up Strider. He's picking up Phantasy Star. So you plan. And I remember I would get mad if my friends bought the same game, because I was like, don't buy that game because I want to play. And that's how the trading and the borrowing and like that's, to me, is lost, because I think in this generation, not to again pick on them, I think a lot of them limit themselves, right, for whatever reason, whether it's financial, whatever, but they don't get a chance to experience the other side. So it becomes too tribal, right?
Yeah, good word. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, shout out to Cop, but at the end of the day, it's like they really don't get a chance to have that real friend to say, hey, you need to see this. You know what I'm saying? And then, because again, case in point, me being hardcore Genesis, hardcore, like Master System, I love that system. Yep. I felt it was a superior system. It just didn't have the software.
It is a superior system.
It is the superior. Correct. I see that double back. I see you, brother. 2-player double. We talked about this. The only 2 players. So salute. The thing about it was like, Genesis was the come up. Like that was them with power. That was tremendous marketing. You remember the commercials. You remember all the stars, sports wise, all the stuff they were doing. Yeah. And when they had that, it was just like, okay, they're coming. Now, true story, when King, he would get the imports early. Yeah. And back then, the American system would come a year later after the import. Sure did. So he had that Super NES, and I'll never forget. He's like, "Hell, you need to come over. You need to see this." So I'm like, all right, cool, whatever. Nintendo, NES. They can't mess with Genesis. So all right, let's see what the new Nintendo doing. Okay, fine. So I came in there very, arrogant, and I was deciding. He had F-Zero, Pilot Wings, the Mario, Super Mario World, or whatever. They throw Super Mario. I'm like, all right, cool. But I never forget. It was actually F-Zero and Pilot Wings. Yeah. And when I saw F-Zero and I saw Mode 7 and I saw it scaling, 3D scaling. Yeah. Because that was the only Achilles heel to the Genesis. The 3D wasn't really that strong. And it was more of a faster side-scrolling, parallax, flash processor type system.
Super Nintendo had extra hardware for that.
Yeah. When I saw that, that's the first time I was like, man, I just ain't doing that, man. And I felt it on the way. I was like, as a gamer, I said to myself, yo, I got to have that. Like that is, I didn't want to take, cheapen my experience and not have it. And I think that's the difference today. Like gamers say, I don't know if it's because of that, but they say so locked in and they refuse to even try or see for whatever reason. And that to me is the biggest. I didn't have that much vitriol. Yeah, I had my favorite, but because of being around each other and friends having systems and consoles and stuff like that, that really eliminated all that, oh, I'm not going to play it. That's garbage and all that. Like we didn't do that. We still had a respect for gaming.
Yeah, and I think it's exasperated by social media, of course, right? Which we could talk about and we will talk about. But yeah, I'm with you. In fact, talking stories, the first time I was the exact same way. I know you and I have talked about this, but Sega Master System, and I always felt it was a better system than the Genesis, despite the software, to your point. And then, to the NES, you know what I meant. Yeah. And then got the Genesis that Christmas. With Ghouls and Ghosts and of course Altered Beast, and Ghouls and Ghosts just blew me away, right? That's one of my all-time legends.
Classic.
But at that point, Super Nintendo didn't come out in the US till 2 years later. It was much later.
Correct.
And I was like, same as you. I don't care about the Super Nintendo, right? But back then, what my mom would do for me, because we didn't have a lot of money, I couldn't buy a ton of games outright. So we would go like every weekend, every other weekend to Blockbuster.
Nice.
And rent one game. She'd let me pick one game.
The rental culture.
Yeah. I mean, that's gone too, right? Or we'd go to, back then you had supermarkets that had movie and game rentals, right? So she'd let me rent one game. And so I was always very careful because that was your game for the weekend. It was like, this is what I'm going to be playing.
Yes.
So, but I don't know what the reason was, but one time we rented a Super Nintendo from Blockbuster. Remember, you could rent the consoles?
Yes.
So she did that for me.
Nice.
And it just came with Super Mario World, and it might have been F-Zero. I think you got to pick like 2 games with it or something, but F-Zero was one of them for sure. And the same thing, I played Super Mario World and I played F-Zero, and F-Zero had the same effect on me. It was like, I've never seen anything like this. It was like, oh man, all right. Yes. And then the weirdest thing I remember, how long ago was that? 91 is what? 30 years ago.
30 years, wow.
Jeez, man.
Jesus.
30. So 30 years ago, I still remember this. In Super Mario World, you start the level, right? And then very similar to the original Mario Brothers, the second level, or right from the beginning, you go into a cave.
Yes.
And you go in that cave. It was the first time I had ever heard sound reflect. So when you jump in that cave, it would go boom, and it would like reflect on the sound.
That shit was amazing.
It was. It sounds so stupid nowadays, but when I first heard it, I'm like, I had to jump again. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, wait a minute.
You're like, yes, yeah.
And it was like I feel like I'm in a cave. You know what I mean?
That sound was amazing.
Yeah, and after that point, I was just, I still love my Genesis, of course, but I just remember talking to my mom constantly. Like I said, we didn't have much money. It's like, I need a Super Nintendo at some point. And I eventually got one. I don't remember when. It wasn't that day or anything. It was a long time later. But then once I had both, to your point, that was 30 years ago. I was still 11, 12, and at that point I realized, well, obviously it's the best to just have them all. Why would you ever want to just have one?
And I think that's what's missing. I honestly think so. I think because you have more of an appreciation, with that, and without the social media aspect with the friends and getting it. And it was my experience, right? It wasn't shared with anyone else. Exactly. And that's what really took it off, man. And the last for me, I know where my love, I'm a big co-op guy. Right? Yeah. Guys, I know, you know me for Destiny. And part of that comes from I love games where it's structured together with people to play and do a common goal. Yeah. I got to give credit. What really started that was TurboGrafx.
Okay. What game?
Because I remember it was a bunch. The first thing I wanted to comment is the peripheral, the Turbo Tap. It was a 5-player peripheral. And I was like, what's this? And King had it first. And I was like, all right. And I'm like, wait a minute. At the time, it was mind-blowing. Like, most games were just 2 at that time. So it's like we had this game called Dungeon Explorer. It was kind of like
I had it.
The music was amazing. Yeah. And I remember getting everybody together. I was like, yo, everybody got a controller. And I was like, yo, it's 4 of us playing it. The other game it never gets enough credit in TurboGrafx history. It's this game called Motor Rotor.
Okay.
It was a racing game. It was kind of like a mock. I don't say it was like a over the top, but like a mock F1, and you can kind of customize your car and stuff like that. And it had this mechanic that if someone who really had a bad car, whatever, they would just kind of get dragged forward. It was a good car. If you were a terrible driver or whatever, you were always in it somehow, but you'd be last. You know what I'm saying? But the reality, it was so fun. The competition, it was so cool. They had sports series. They had this it was TV sports, basketball. TV
I remember.
Sports,
yeah. They were really good.
They were really good cooperative experience. And from that thing on, I remember I was very impressed with the N64 and all that stuff when they had the 4 players now built in, right? Because I think even PlayStation had a tap. You know, and an external.
It did later. Yeah.
Right. But I think Nintendo was the first to say, okay, you know what? We're going to integrate this into the base console. Yep. So now, you know, and then we all had our little Batarang controllers, and that's when the love of the wrestling game started. You know what I'm saying? The No Mercy. So for me, like a lot of these cooperative roots, because of those consoles, really began. Like I know that merged, that kind of forged me into being this big tie-up cooperative. I like my single player, but I remember those experiences big time because of that.
It's funny you mentioned the tap because I remember that I had Dungeon Explorer. Motor Rotor, I'm sure I played it. I just can't remember it right now, which bugs me because I'm usually good at remembering these old elusive games. But you know what made me think of that when you said that? Because Genesis was just 2 as well, but they came out with the plug where you could play 4, and it was General Chaos. You remember that game? Yeah. That was a crazy game, but I remember playing that with friends and then thinking about, okay, all right, this is kind of interesting, you know, because all you ever did with friends, like we were talking about, was you sat there and 2 people played and everyone else waited.
Yeah,
that was your only option back then. But but while it's top of mind, though, I want to jump back over to the arcade because I forgot to comment on something you said around, you know, you were describing the scene, and I think you brought so many things back to light for me. So if your game was Tekken, then my game was, I was kind of twofold between Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat. I played tournament level at both, including MK2 when that came out, because that was like a revolution.
Who was your Ken Ryu guy? What was you?
So I was a Ken guy mostly, but then once Championship Edition came out, I moved to Sagat. Yeah, Sagat's the man.
Dieter.
Yeah, you can't be. That's why I have the statue of him, man. He was the first gaming statue I bought with Sagat.
Salute.
For that reason, but I would have to say, you know, Mortal Kombat 2 was the one that
changed the game.
Yeah, because I remember. So we had an arcade in the mall near me, and I would ride my bike up there. As anytime I had money, which you know, as much as I could. But you would even just go to hang out. You know what I mean?
It was the spot.
Yeah, that was it. That's where you knew, because there's no communication, especially with the people you only knew from the arcade. It's not like you were talking to them every day. You knew them at the arcade. And so we would go up there, we would compete in Street Fighter 2, and you know the revolution that was.
Oh my God.
I mean, it was ridiculous. So we did that, but I went up there, we played Mortal Kombat 1. That changed the game originally. And a lot of tournaments, a lot of people got to know each other in my arcade for that. But then 2 came out, and it just, back then, it's not like we knew it was coming. It just, I rode up to the arcade one day.
You're like,
it was sitting there right at the front. And I just walked in, you know, eyes pretty much like this, you know, and stood there and just watched it because it was so much more advanced than Mortal Kombat 1.
Oh, yeah.
And a huge community developed around that game. But what you were making me remember is, one, win streaks were huge because when those games got big, eventually they started to become 50 cents a play instead of 25. And it was like, I'm not paying another 50 cents. I'm just going to keep playing. And the other cool thing that developed, I don't know if you guys did this, you can tell me, but at least in the arcade near us, we started getting into beyond all the normal kind of shit talking and everything you were doing with everyone else in the competition. We started we formed co-op teams.
Yes.
So me and my buddy Joel, who will never see this, but I'll shout him out anyway. Him and I were like the top 2, and we were friends in school. Nice. But we were like the top 2 guys at MK there. We had played tournaments together. And so when that started forming, we were like, dude, let's just do this round on, round off.
Round off. Yep. That was a big thing.
Yeah,
Big
yeah.
thing. Yes.
And they even recreated it on the online games now. You can play tag team where you can go round off
Go
and
in, go
pass it
out.
off.
Yes. Yes.
But I'll never forget there was, it was a night, probably a weekend. I had to be Friday or Saturday because I can just picture the crowd and, probably 15, 20 at least, quarters up.
Oh,
and me and Joel just tag teaming. Oh my God, man. I can't remember how many wins in a row we had, but it was out of control. We're like, we're not getting off this. And when I play, you guys probably know me well enough. When I play, I'm zero focused. Like I'm quiet. Like I don't say a word. I'm just focused on beating you.
Yes, yes, that's me.
Joel was the shit talker.
Yeah, he's the king. He's our king.
Yeah, he was the king. And the funny thing is, he's a way shorter guy than me, dark black, like a goofy looking guy when he was younger.
That
right?
mouth was reckless.
Oh my God. And you know how it was. Like sometimes you could because of who was there and who you knew how far you could push it.
Yes.
Because you knew if there were new people you didn't know, then it was, okay, who's here with me that I know is on my side?
Yes.
Depending on how you want to talk this. And Joel was just ruthless, man. I mean, especially because when you're co-oping and you're winning together, when I'm playing and I'm quiet and I'm kicking someone's ass, he's just behind me just chirping.
He's already your hype man getting it. So the person's already off again, the mental toughness.
I'm telling you, he just breaks them down.
And then once you like, it really, it's like fighting. Like if you don't have confidence and if you're broken mentally, you make the silly mistakes and then you're out of there. And then the pressure starts to mount. That's a huge part that's missing, I feel.
Yeah.
So
and
much.
It's funny you mentioned that because, even I showed, God, what was it? I showed either my son or someone an old clip of Tyson fighting because I grew up in the Tyson era, loved Tyson,
sir.
right?
Yes, sir.
And anyone who watched Tyson knows he'd come into the ring, he had the same face he's just laser focused on his opponent, and it was either my son or stepson or someone asked me like, look at his face. I was like, yeah, he was gonna whip your ass. You didn't have a choice in it.
Facts.
But that's what it was. It was a mental game. And so the fact that co-op I always felt was real fun, but just because I could be playing, Joel could be getting in his head while I'm beating him, and people would just leave there demoralized.
Yeah, they were destroyed, bro. Destroyed, man. So many stories like that. Oh my.
Yeah. I miss those days. I really do.
And like I think it really forged us, right?
It did.
Mental toughness, being able to operate under pressure. One of the things for me was being adapt on the fly, something that is giving you a problem, and then being able to try to figure something out and stuff like that. All those things, really. And then also the point I want to make is that there was almost like local heroes, right, at the arcade, like people who you revered. You were like, yo, this guy.
Yeah, there was definitely reputation and like a class system almost.
Class system, right? And then sometimes, for some arcades, there was brotherhoods. Like, yo, I'm like, yo, good, well, yo, this guy's got a serious, Chun-Li or whatever character they're taking, and you get that respect, and it's just like it didn't become, like the head nod when you walk in the room. And
that's it.
It's a community, man. It's a community. It was really, really cool to see. And again, a lot of that is missing, man. I do miss those days, man.
I think and I know you know what I mean here, but one of the funniest kind of examples of those situations you would get into is there'd be times where I'd have to do something at home and I'd show up to the arcade what was late because there was like a timetable of when people were there, right?
Yes.
And so you'd show up late and there'd be, I'd walk in sometimes and there'd be maybe 6 of the regulars, the guys I know, right? And then there'd be like 2 new guys who were standing there waiting to play. And so, you'd walk in and the guys would see you. And to your point, you just kind of look at them. But most of the time, you wouldn't come in. If there were people you didn't know or weren't part of the group that were normally there, you wouldn't let them know.
That
everyone else knew, right?
Yes.
So you would kind of walk in, you give them the kind of look or eye or nod, and then you walk up and just kind of watch.
Size up the competition and you're looking over the screen.
You'd be like, all right, and then a match or two, you kind of get a feel for them. And then if it really came down to it, and we were just like, we want the machine, so let's just get these guys out of here. We would already know who to say. Be like, Joel, why don't you pick Reptile and just get him out of here, man? And,
y'all was worse than us. I never did that. That's cold blooded. Yo, why don't you think of?
We'd be coordinating. It would depend on the attitude of the guy. To your point, right? Sure. If they knew what they were doing and they weren't just acting like they knew what they were doing, and they were kind of like down to, you know what I mean, respectful, kind of like, oh hey, you know, and nice, then it was cool. Yeah. But sometimes, you know, people would come in there and just like, oh, you know, I'm the best at Mortal Kombat, and then, you know, and be like, all right, man, why don't you grab Raiden and just get him the hell out of here? We don't need him. You know, and then the best part would be like if you lose and he'd look, you know, there's no quarter. None of us will put quarters up. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So he'd lose and be like, you want to play again? Yeah, I'll play again. Beat him again. You want to play again?
Just see the demoralization.
And then finally he'd be like, no, I'm out, man. I'd be like, all right, our turn. And then we'd start playing.
Dude, that is factual arcade culture. Like factual, like to the T, man. I mean, again, and when I started getting my reputation, I remember King for some points would be my mouthpiece. And it was just so fun. I remember doing
I wish we had videos from back then, man.
If we had videos on YouTube, could you imagine? You know what I'm saying? Back in these days, forget about it. We would be sensations and the things we'd be saying. Yeah, man, I miss those days, brother.
It is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
God, I just, you know, to your point, I know King now. I'd love to see King younger, just talking as he can talk.
Ruthless and no filter. Nothing's off limits. Like it was bad. It was bad for people. Like you did not. Again, we had to deal with him daily. You know what I'm saying? So again, like a shout out to Kai. He put Kai Basu through the ringer. He put Solve through the ringer through a couple of wrestling games. You know, now for us, we all kind of had our niche. You know what I'm saying? My boy Sinister, he was really good at Halo. My boy Mr. High, they were savants at Halo. Like when we do, you know, the Blood Gulch and the, you know, the death match, those guys are always at the top. Like it was just like, damn. I mean, I was good, but I wasn't that good. Tekken and sports was my thing. Okay. Like, you know, I was the king of the EA Sports. It's in the game. So when the Maddens came out, the old Maddens, you know what I'm saying? The cardboard box with the up and down with the ambulance come on the field. Man, I was a beast in that. And then where I really developed my thing was sports games with like the basketball games. Remember when Lakers versus Celtics?
Oh yeah, those are legendary games.
Legendary on the Genesis.
Because they were.
Sports were not good.
No, Super Nintendo, you stay away from the sports.
Yeah, you don't do sports like so. Basically, where I came in, and then I would take that to the next level. We do tournaments, we do custom teams. So that was that. I gotta give myself credit. I was really good in the N64 wrestling games. You know, it was me, Kaibatsu, and Solve. It was like that was the holy trinity where the belt would change hands. You know what I'm saying, kind of thing. But yeah, competitively, those were my kind of like my origins with stuff like that. So FPS, I was solid, not the greatest, but the fighting and the sports back then, those were my real dominant stuff. And then everything else, I just love co-op or some great single player games. But yeah, I miss those times, man.
Yeah, it's just different. It's just different. But shout out. You know, we just slandered all the Super Nintendo sports games. Yes. So I'll just shout out to Ken Griffey real quick.
Shout out. All right, that was a good one. Look, if you're a hardcore sports guy, that was the appeal. And people don't realize how underrated that was. Ace in the Hole for Genesis.
It was really big back then.
Yeah, it was really huge. And I don't know why. The ports were better.
It was something to do, if I remember correctly. It was something to do because if you remember, the CPU in the Genesis was twice as fast. Numbers are my game, man. So if I remember correctly, it's something like 7 megahertz versus like 3.5 in the Genesis. And I think the Genesis, for that reason, because remember the Super Nintendo versions would get slowed down crazy. They couldn't handle it.
Yes.
And that ruined it.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Genesis ones were just always better.
You hockey, we got to talk about the NHL. Bro.
Oh, dude, I grew up. We could do a podcast on NHL.
That's why NHL alone. I mean, and again, a brother from the South Bronx. We ain't got hockey around us. I'm going to say,
from a video game perspective, though, hockey games are the jam.
Introduced me to the sport. See, that's you don't realize. Like I remember the original PGA golfs. I remember the original NHL. Like those games were so good. EA had the EASN. Remember?
Yes.
EASN
Sports Network.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like when you saw that white cover, that logo, it was great. They had a strong reputation. And
huge.
I remember, I never forget. I was like, "Yo, this hockey game is amazing."
Yeah.
Like it was so good, and then they iterate each year. That they had one timers, and I'm like, "Yo, this!" I was just going crazy, and then that's when the love for number 66 started.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. I have to admit, it was very Genesis focused. I'm like, "Yo, whatever this guy is, this is my team."
Yeah,
68, which was Yager.
Yep.
They had, I believe they
Kevin
had
Stevens.
Yep, Kevin Stevens, 25.
Yeah.
77. What was my man? What was my man? The defenseman. He was
Coffee.
Paul Coffee. What? That I was my squad, man. You know what I mean? And I formed the connection every year because of EA sports games.
Yeah.
It got me into the real sport of hockey. And I was like, yo, I gotta go watch a game.
Yeah.
Which was great. I went to my first game. It was in Madison Square Garden.
Nice.
Mario Lemieux scores like 5 goals every type of goal. Honestly, I'm like, he's the greatest ever. I'm like, he's the greatest I've ever seen.
So you've been tainted, but that's okay.
I was tainted early.
He's up. I mean, we could talk about that too. He's amazing. But he really was. He was a game changer. He was incredible. But those games, sorry, I was going to say to your point, because you mentioned the whole white case and logo and everything. Once they realized, once they started standardizing that look of EA sports titles, they crushed it, man. Those games took off from that point.
Big time. Let's not forget. People forget. At one point, NBA Live was extremely dominant too.
Oh yeah,
NBA Live was a big thing, man. So yeah, salute to them. I mean, during those days, it was really the level of quality was just so good.
Yeah, it's a shame because I think I don't know what it is nowadays, whether it's funding or complexity of the titles or whatnot, but the year-to-year changes just don't feel like they used to. When you got that new NHL or Madden or whatever back then, I mean, it was a big deal.
Absolutely, it was the iterations were more substantial. Just I don't know, maybe they fall into the yearly production cycle just too much for them, and they just can't iterate. That's very samey. But that used to be my thing, man. Those sports games we used to play, those things heavy, man, heavy.
Yeah, so I grew up playing ice hockey, like in real life. And I still play. So obviously NHL was a big thing, and I played on a team that traveled. So we used to travel to I've been to Canada a few times to play. I went up to Boston to play, down south to play, just all over. And you'd stay in hotels, and there would always be someone who brought their Genesis, brought the latest NHL. And I specifically remember one time where we had a tour bus that had a TV on it that we actually hooked the Genesis up on the bus.
Wow.
So we started a tournament. We had a whole weekend tournament. We started the tournament, and the final came down to me versus my coach.
Oh.
And I beat him.
Oh, okay. That's that playing time, sir.
Luckily, I was good enough at that point to get. He needed me on the team, but practice was rough a few times. That's for sure.
Boy, taking out that frustration. Can't let this young buck have that. Work hard.
Oh man, yeah, just some great times with those games, though, man. And again, it goes back to what we started with: the shoulder-to-shoulder competition. Sitting there, same TV. That was the beautiful thing, right? Because unlike, say, Halo's, GoldenEyes, etc., that came later with split screen, and you could kind of screen cheat as we all did, the sports games, those types of games, you're seeing the same thing.
Yes.
So it's just straight competition. There's no one, you can't cheat, you can't do anything like that. And you always had those money plays in Madden or whatnot.
Of course.
You go for that fake punt, and you know what I mean.
Some cheesy money play where the AI is always busted and it just always works every time. King was the king of finding those, by the way. But that
doesn't surprise me one bit.
And shout out to them, because it's funny you said it. All the other games I felt from a competitive balance standpoint, they were fine, mostly. Madden got to that point where I know people used to read plays. So I remember at one point they used to implement choosing like the play above your screen or below your screen so that the person next to you doesn't see. That was a thing.
You could fake it.
Yes, you could fake it. Because I remember it got to the point where I'm like, all right, these people are picking the perfect defenses against things I'm doing every single time. And I'm getting stopped for a loss. And I'm just like, okay, something's going on. So Madden had to evolve because they literally had the over the side, you know, your friend over the shoulder trying to look at what you do. So that was
I think that's actually, you know, competitively speaking, or maybe I'm biased towards hockey. I mean, that's a fact. But one of the things I like about NHL from a game perspective, if you're playing one-on-one like that, right, is you control every person on your team. So when you pass the puck, you're still in control. You're in control of the whole game and everything that happens. Whereas in Madden, you're controlling the height, the QB, and then whoever makes the play. But everything else, all those other 20 players are AI all over the place. So it's a little different, but
you're right. That's the beauty of NHL, man. So absolutely.
But gosh, man, I told you we could talk old school all day.
You know how we do.
So, you know, kind of segueing then, one of the other things I wanted to touch on was really around the gaming industry, which we've kind of half done already. But, you know, when we're talking about an industry that back then, and I don't have the figures in front of me, right, but I'm guessing was probably a $5, $10, $20 billion industry globally at the time. And obviously over the decades, right, we're now closing in on a $200 billion industry, which has dwarfed everything. It's higher than music and movies combined. In fact, I read an interesting stat today, which I didn't know. It grosses more than movies, music, and all of the professional sports in North America combined.
Wow.
So think about that. I mean, that's
puts things in perspective.
Yeah, it's nuts. So, you know, I know that when we started getting a little older, so we get into our 20s and, you know, the PlayStation comes around and the game changes a little bit, right? And then Dreamcast is Sega's last hurrah, and we'll always celebrate it. And I think, you know, it's probably fair to say I think the PS2 was a revolutionary step for gaming.
Big time.
But by the time we get to there, that's 2001 or 2000. You know, did you back then, were you still into gaming the same way? And did you foresee it coming to where it is today? You know, I mean, obviously we don't foresee all the technology and everything, but did you think that gaming was going to grow to the level it is today, where it's basically kind of infiltrated modern society, right? It's part of culture today.
That's a great question, because initially it just felt like my little circle's hobby. Right?
That's, sorry, not to cut you off, Cog, but that's the point I forgot to make, is when we were growing up, if you were a gamer, you were part of a niche, right?
Yes.
You were part of a specific group who were relegated most of the time.
Right.
And kind of dismissed.
Absolutely. I was just about to go there. Yep.
Okay. All right. So I think the transition from that and the experiences we've had, which we could talk forever about,
absolutely,
to now, where gaming is mainstream culture, very popular. You know, you've got representatives in Congress playing games on stream, and famous people and movie stars building PCs, and you know, Witcher's on Netflix, and all these things. It just it feels very different to me. I never would have foreseen that it would get this big.
I'm the same way, because again, to your point, again, I'm growing up New York City, South Bronx. You know, it wasn't cool. Like I was laughed at. The only thing that saved me from complete mockery was I was an athlete. So just like you, I played basketball, I played football. I was really good. You know what I mean? So they were like, okay, ball. So it was like it kind of gave me like a pass.
Sure.
Because I was still cool, because I could still do the other things. But I know friends that because all they did was game, they would clown them dudes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, nah, this is my guy. Like, you know what I'm saying? I had to kind of like shout to them, like, nah, this is my guy. and like gaming is cool, because they would laugh at us. We had our little books, we had our instruction manuals or whatever it is we had in the magazines, like Game Pro, EGM, at all these different magazines at the time, and dude, we would geek out. We were like, "Yo, look at the new stuff." It was just it was a different time. So as it went on, I remember certain moments in gaming where, like, Halo was a moment.
Yes.
But people would come by and say, "Okay, what's that? What's y'all doing?" You know what I'm saying? Let me try that. Okay, that looks wow. This is cool. And so many people would participate. Most people wouldn't participate. It took certain games. I remember for PlayStation, Final Fantasy VII.
That's true. I have to call a spade a spade.
There were guys like that just wasn't into that, and they thought it was almost like they were tricked. They thought it was an action game. And then it was like, oh, this is some, narrative JRPG thing. And then they got them into it. There were just moments, man. Like, it was certain moments, certain things that were just bigger than life. And it made more of the mainstream kind of look at gaming different, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, as it goes on. And then I remember, like, some of these same people that used to laugh at us, they're gamers now. Like, they're hardcore gamers now. It was just, I knew it came full circle because, like, my mom would never touch any of that stuff. She was just toys. I remember
that's what they were when we were kids. They were toys.
They were toys. Yeah. That's a good point. Yep, that's a good. And I remember, I forgot what it was. I think it was actually 3DO, and that was during the whole. Remember when 3DO really went full with the full motion video implementation?
Yes, I had a 3DO, man. I loved it.
And I think it was like a Sherlock's home. And she just watched me. I was like, what is she doing? Like, she would come into my room. She'd say, whatever she had to say, then she'd leave, right?
Yeah.
She stood and watched me play it again. I'm like, okay. She was like, wow, that looks, whatever they're doing, it looks, real life.
Yeah.
And I guess
it's basically like, it was almost like the ancient equivalent of like almost like Telltale games back then, where it was like you had video and then you just make quick selections and video again.
And it just mesmerized her. And I remember those like one of some of the few things I could get her to stay in the room and stuff like that, and just like watch. And as we go on now, and I know I'm really fast forwarding to regular. The reason why a lot of people are like, yo, I think I was on a couple of shows. People like, yo, give me some of your games of generation, and Inside was always high. And they were like, look, that's a good game, but why do you have it in Game of Generation? The reason being is I know I still have friends that are non-gamers, right? They never touch a game, or they may have touched a game once back in the day, and they just look at me like, okay, that's your geeky hobby. They respect you, Cog, that you do a podcast, and that's cool.
Yeah.
But whatever. And I would show them that game, or they would see me, and they still, all right, why don't you try moving that lever? What about? And I'm like, yo, you want what I'm saying? I'm like, oh, it's a button. I'm like, it's simple, just try. And it was just one button, and I got people to play this game. It became like you're not a gamer, all right, cool, try this. And I would bring the Switch over, I'd bring the Xbox controller, and they'd play it and they'd get hooked and they'd buy it. I'm like, you see, it's certain games that were transformative in that respect. And that's why I gave Inside a lot of credit, because that was one of the few games, it didn't matter who it was, people either watched, helped, contributed, or wanted to play and get it.
Yeah. That's fair. Mm-hmm. That's fair. It's funny you talk about the classic games like that, because now I'm thinking of 3DO games, but the game that really visually brought people in, I think, back in that era was Myst.
Oh.
Remember when Myst came out? Because it was like you were walking through an actual world for the first time. Yes. Game was boring as hell, but
for its time,
for its time, it was a revolution.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But I just I think today, and my son will get on, who's 15, by the way, my youngest, and they're just on Discord and they're just playing all these different games all the time, and it's just, I think the experience, it's part of their day now. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like it is for us. I mean, we talk and breathe games every day, but we've done that our whole life. Whereas that was very rare. Yes. Not even that long ago. I mean, we're not talking ancient history here. We're not that old.
It's not even that long ago, right?
No, but I mean, even, to your point, I think Halo was a moment, and you made a very good point around specific games breaking through that barrier. And in fact, I love to harp on Halo, but Halo 3, I think, is the game that took took it into mainstream, right? The marketing behind that game and what it meant took it to a whole nother level. So
absolutely. I mean, another one, I know we'll have a debate about this, but the Mass Effect series, right?
no, it did. Absolutely did.
Every guest we have with IOP, I mean, we've had developers on, people were like, yo, I didn't think games could do this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thanks to Mass Effect 1, you know what I mean?
We're gonna save it for our debate show, which he's invited, y'all. He's invited. He's on team Mass Effect 1. I respect it. We'll definitely continue. We're gonna have a serious debate. You and a couple of others, man.
Oh, I'm gonna be prepared. I gotta hit the gym before we have that debate.
I'm worried about you guys are stacked, man. I've got you, Hogue Lord, Bill Stillwell. Like
Bill and
you guys are stacked, man.
You know why we're stacked though? I mean,
we're on the side of righteousness. We're on the side of the right side of history. Oh no, we do admit, your jokes aside, like Mass Effect.
Yeah,
so tremendous for the time, and
it felt like that game that forget the word I'm looking for here, but basically, we've had all these iconic sci-fi culture things, right? Obviously Star Trek, obviously Star Wars, all these things, and Mass Effect was probably the first story-based thing like that in the video game space that made it feel like games could compete on a fictional kind of universal level.
Yes,
because the story and the universe they created is just so good.
Cinematic nature, the dialogue choices, I just remember for its time, not to make this a Mass Effect podcast, but for its time, it was just like, I remember being blown away that whatever your save data was at the end, transform it into the next game. And then if people died, they were lost in that next game. You know what I'm saying? Provided, you brought your save over. And again, just so many like just transformative things that were introduced, and like it's to the overall point. It was again another one of those moments, right? Where it's like, boom. I mean, and we got to give credit to. I know people give it a lot of crap, but Call of Duty was one of those too.
Oh, absolutely. For mainstream culture, 100%.
I remember, for me personally, I know I'm gonna you're probably gonna send a lot of shots my way, but I gotta say it. Like I call it errors. I remember certain errors as gamers, right?
Yeah.
There were certain games that were the king of that era, or they had a long run. Like Street Fighter had a long run.
Yeah.
Kombat had a run on the come up. Virtual Fighters, different things, different genres. Madden, right? Had certain things had runs.
Yeah.
When Halo came, that was a dominant run.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, and it still was always good. But I never forget when I think it was Modern Warfare. And I guess it was the implementation of 60 frames, something about it. And then the perk system.
Yep.
Even us were looking at Halo like,
all right, easy now.
I remember the crew.
No, I do.
They kind of jumped ship for a bit.
Oh no, some people jump ship forever.
Really?
Yeah, I mean they really did. And remember, I still hold that 2007 is the best video game year ever. So Halo 3 and Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare came out the same year, and Mass Effect 1.
Wow.
And BioShock.
Wow, I didn't even realize that.
And Assassin's Creed. I mean, there's more. You can keep going. It was either 1 or 2 came out. I think it was 1. I'm pretty sure.
And 1 was still transformative for a time because it was doing something.
I mean, 2007 is unbelievable if you look back now what we got in that year. But that's a whole nother topic. But to your point, Modern Warfare, Halo was the shooter from 2001 until 2007. Killzone tried and failed badly. There were a bunch of other companies that tried and didn't even come close. Modern Warfare is the one that stuck and said, okay, we're very different from Halo, but the quality is just as good.
Right.
And I remember being on gaming forums and having debates with people about Halo 3 and Modern Warfare because I was a Halo diehard.
Yeah, I know you're repping hard.
Now, I still played, the difference is I still played the hell out of Modern Warfare, right? And I still think Halo 3 is better. But to your point, Call of Duty at that point. Yeah. Call of Duty was good. Call of Duty 2, when it launched with the Xbox 360, was great.
Great.
But Call of Duty 4 changed the game.
Changed the game.
And it did bring it into the mainstream and shit. It's been at the top ever since.
Yeah, absolutely. There's moments. I'm looking. You're absolutely right. I'm looking at this list
for 2007. Yeah, it's nuts.
This is insane. You had, like I said, Call of Duty, Halo 3, BioShock, Super Mario Galaxy, Portal, Mass Effect, Crisis, Uncharted.
Uncharted 2. Yeah.
God of War 2, Half-Life 2.
I told you, man. 2007 is untouchable.
This is crazy. This is great. Command and
we actually did a show. One of our I can't remember. One we did a show.
It was 2007. That was another transformative. Non-gamers played that game. They bought the This is insane.
Yeah, we had a debate a couple years ago because it was either 2018, 2017, 2018, one of them. I mean, we've had some good years lately, right? But it was like, is this the year to finally top 2007? And I was like, no, it's not. We haven't topped it yet.
Metroid Prime. This is insane.
Yeah, if you look at the entire lineup of 2007, it's unbelievable.
I didn't even realize all of that happened in 1 year.
Yeah, in 1 year, which, now that it's 14 years ago, I don't think we realized all of the greatness we were getting like we do now, because none of us were on Twitter or sharing the stuff on a daily basis.
Absolutely right, brother. Absolutely right.
Crazy. But so I don't think we have to talk long about this, but another thing I was thinking about is, we were talking about industry and growth. And the thing I find most fascinating about it is that China hasn't really entered the mainstream conversation yet around what's going on there, because their market is looked at separately.
Yes.
Because for obvious, political reasons. But I was reading some stats the other day as an example that Minecraft in China, not Minecraft in China has over 200 million monthly active users.
That's crazy. Wow.
It has been downloaded over 400 million times.
Wow.
That's one game in China.
One game.
Yeah. PUBG Mobile and PUBG are $1 billion IPs in China. Yep. And it just, it makes me think as China expands, and they're exploding, right? As they expand, and I don't know what the future looks like, of course, but I have to think we get to a point where in the near future, I would think, where we really start to see China become a major, major player in game development and funding and production and everything else. What's the game we saw earlier or late last year? Wukong. Yeah, it looks incredible. Right. And it's, I think that's just going to be one of many that we start seeing out of that industry. I mean, Japan's always been the mainstay. But Japan is a very small country compared to China. I mean, it's tiny. Absolutely. And the resources and the revenue and the money that's going into there right now into China, I just think, mark my words, I would think by next generation, so we're 5-6 years out, I think they're going to be a serious player, and because of that, we're going to get a wealth of new ideas in gaming and new IPs that we've never kind of thought of before.
Yeah, you literally said every point I wanted to say, because that is like you're on fire, bro. Like that's what I think about it. It's just like this untapped huge resource, and besides just from a game consumption standpoint, you just nailed it from a game development. And I love those type of things, because I mean, even back then with Japan, like, Japanese games, they were just so different, and they introduced so many different mechanics. So I'm very curious to see, Chinese developers really get their hands on tech and then express themselves, so that now we're seeing experiences and stuff that we're not used to. And to me, that always makes gaming better.
Absolutely.
Because we love our Western RPGs and we love our JRPGs. Like, what's the genre that comes forth? And to me, that pushes the industry forward. You know what I'm saying? I remember, just going on to when I go to conventions and stuff like that, and I got to shout them out. I mean, I know CD Projekt Red is the prominent Polish kind of company, but I remember seeing like a lot of games, any game, I'm like, oh wow, another Polish developer. Wow. Like, these games are really cool. You know what I mean? So it's cool when you see, for whatever reason, whether it be a resource thing or political ease of allowing gaming in, like, you would see these tremendous ideas And I love that stuff because to me, overall, now we getting gaming global. Now we really getting the pot cooking, and that makes gaming better, man. I'm always a fan of that stuff. So yeah, man, like Korea is another like it's so
Yeah,
much.
South Korea. I mean,
Mm,
nuts. Yeah.
it's so much. And again, I know me and you always have this conversation about why we're a fan of what the vision of Microsoft is trying to
Yes.
do with Game Pass and mobile
Yeah.
and games on these streaming platforms and stuff, because some of these regions really cater towards that. And like you said, we're trying with PUBG Mobile and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll be surprised at what breaks through and becomes this major success in another region. And again, it's the health of the industry. So I'm all about that, man. It's really exciting to see what these other regions can do. Once they really hit the ground running, they have the tech, they're starting their development studios, they're starting to build stuff up. Exciting times.
Yeah, I think the point you made around kind of their experiences and it's the culture, right? I mean, think about how much, to your point, how much Japanese culture has been. I don't want to say learned because that may be a little too much of a stretch, but I mean how much it's kind of infiltrated our upbringing because of games, right?
Yes.
There's a lot that I think I know about Japan because of games. And obviously anime's become a huge thing. It wasn't when we were younger, but it become huge. But I mean, look at a game right behind me, right? And shout out to you, it Ghost of Tsushima, right? Look at what they did to kind of appreciate and celebrate some of the things from Japanese culture. And knowing, China, because of the political reasons, I think there's a massive amount of untapped history there that West is just not taught. We just don't know it.
Just don't know it.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
I'm just thinking also, I'm just in my mind thinking about Wukong, and I'm just like,
yeah,
there's so many that don't know that story. So it's complete foreign to them, but so cool. Like, what is that? And a lot of this is mythology. A lot of this is based on, traditions and things of that nature. And I love stuff like that. Again, that pushes the culture forward. That pushes the genre forward. And people then get more creative, more ideas. Because there's always those periods of stagnation. You know what I'm saying? There's always. Definitely. So when you introduce that, I cannot wait, man. I'm always going to push that. I'm always going to push diversity in reference to game development as well. And those are the times you get to see those ideas, and you're like, yo, okay, this is stuff. I'm feeling this. Yeah, man, absolutely.
When I think, you said diversity, which is something we haven't touched on. And I meant to, that was one of the other points I wanted to touch on about the arcade and the experiences of our past, is because, I wrote an article around how gaming, the good in gaming, right? How it brings people together. But one,
amazing.
Thank you.
I was like, this touched me. You killed that article, brother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just, as well as I do, that gaming back then, especially the arcade scene, it just brought people together. It didn't matter where you were from, where you lived, what you looked like,
facts,
anything about yourself. It was how good you were at the game, which is what it should be about. And I think one of the nice things kind of in that realm, right, is that you got a lot of, especially today, a lot of these kids play games, like I said, day in, day out. And, whatever their education level may be, in one way or another, when you're experiencing different cultures through gaming, different nations, different histories, different political battles, we've seen a growth in these games that touch on serious topics. What was it? The War of Mine, I think, that touched on the invasion of, I'm going off, I may be wrong here, but something like the invasion of Poland,
right,
in Nazi Germany, something like that. But I mean, very tough topics. But your players, you're not forcing, but the people who play it are engaging in that, and they're, it's possible for them to have fun and learn at the same time, even though the game's not looked at as like a learning type game, right? And I think Chinese history is, I don't even know a whole lot about it, but I know there's a wealth of it there. From the Ming Dynasty and everything forward. But I think it would just be amazing to see what they can do with, big funding and bringing their vision of things and histories into fruition.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, again, you think about also the set pieces, right? You know, we talked about Ghost of
Mhm.
Tsushima earlier. You know, again, you know, when you introduce these different cultures into it, and now you've got besides just new ideas and stuff, you know, like we said, culture and getting these things in gaming, and it really, really is mind blowing for a lot of people that really know nothing about that culture. It truly brings that side, that element into the game, and it's needed. It's needed, man.
It
I
is.
love that stuff. I mean, overall, I absolutely love that stuff. It really draws me in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Which I can tell by your ghost love.
Yeah, I was in. I felt like I was on the island right there, man. I was there. Jerry
I need to
Bonds.
get back to it. I did reinstall it on my
Okay.
PS5, but I don't have
Okay.
my save file. So I've got
Same
to
thing.
figure that mess out. But once I do, I'll get back to it.
Mhm.
So kind of a little bit of a transition, but you know, I figured since it's just the two of us, we could kind of chat about gaming media
Ha ha ha.
because I know
Let's go.
I know we have a lot of thoughts on this.
Mhm.
You know, I've been rather outspoken on this, you know, and I certainly let my feelings be known around
Mhm.
how gaming, will use the phrase lightly, journalism is handled today.
Yes.
Um, but you know, what I was trying to think and kind of thinking about this conversation with someone like yourself is we touched on the EGMs, the Game Pros, the Next Generation was my
Oh,
favorite magazine.
and yes.
Yeah, my favorite. I mean, they were like the intelligent
Mhm.
developer kind of gaming magazine.
Yes.
But you know, I was trying to think back. Okay, realistically, if I'm looking back at those magazines, were they as sensationalist as media today, gaming
Right.
media today, and
Right.
you know what we see on social media and websites and stuff?
Mhm.
And you know, they had their moments. You know, of course they did, right? I mean, they're still selling magazines,
Mhm.
but I don't know. I personally, as you well know, feel like there is a level of kind of degradation there, in the way that things are covered. I mean,
Yeah.
there are a few respectable sites, I would say, that kind of cover things what I would call the right way. And when I say that, I mean big sites like you know,
Oh
gamesindustry.biz
yeah.
is
Yeah. They,
probably,
oh yeah. Very professional. Yeah.
you know what I mean? They're a professional site covering the industry, right?
Yes.
Um, but there's just so much of the nonsense, and I
Mhm.
just, you know, I can't tell if it's just my bias and my upbringing,
Mhm.
or if it actually has devolved the way I think it's devolved. Do you know what I mean? What do you think about
Oh,
that?
I know where you're going. Look, man, I mean, look, both of us, you know, we both run websites, you know,
Yeah,
and
that's what I mean.
you
And
know,
we've
so this,
talked about this at length. I know,
yeah,
but
this is near and dear to us. I mean,
yeah,
you know, to the credit of the past generation, the old gen of media, of games media, where so, let's be real, social media wasn't as much of a factor. It wasn't really a
of course.
factor at all. So
Yeah,
you came there for the information. You came there for the news. It was this resource that you needed to get a hold of because there wasn't really anything else covering it.
yeah,
And I think, like I said, now again, the way things are reported from certain sites, yeah, it is disappointing because some things unfortunately are reported in a semi-inflammatory nature, which is to provoke or to get an emotion out of something, as opposed to just reporting.
yeah,
Right. And there's one thing to say, this is how I feel. And I like, we urge our writers, opinion.
yes,
Like, this is
yes,
how you feel. There's times I had to tell a guy, like, listen, not that you can't, we're going to censor you, right? But when you make a statement like this, and remember, unless it's a review, which is again your interpretation, that writer's
yep,
personal interpretation of said content or medium. But the thing is, I feel a lot of times, and look, a lot of people are guilty, this clickbait era, and it's a fanboy driven, very tribal, very my Sony, my Xbox, my this, and people feel like they have shares in this
yeah.
company
They
and
got a lot of employees they're not aware of.
there's a lot of floating around. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, yeah, it's just, the sad part about it is, yeah, a lot of, not all, that, of course, I'm not going to condemn all,
Yeah,
but a lot of games media has fallen into it, and and it's I'm from an era where it's like, okay, I respect the hustle. I know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But let's be real here. Well, you know what I'm saying? As far as just as long as you acknowledge what you're doing, because a lot of it is to literally they see the traffic, they see whether it's the positive or the vitriol or whatever, it's going to generate that type of emotional response based on this level of culture. And it's sad because my whole thing is this. Okay, fine, but you got to look at the repercussions. The repercussions now, I'm just in this point where I'm just so disgusted, Ains, when developers just get attacked.
Yes, me too.
Like, you lazy, all you had to do, why couldn't you do it like said? Like, game development does not work like that. You know, it drives me crazy. That's why it's like, for my platform, I have to be humble and celebrate these guys because we don't have half the skill a lot of these guys have to make games and know the process of game making, right? So you got that aspect, you know, and it's a trickle down effect with these kind of articles because again, you got tribalism, you got people attacking, you get people being disrespectful, and then the other thing, you know, on now that I'm seeing now in this generation, particularly what really aggravates me the most, what grind my gears, is we've got all these armchair developers. Right? Everybody know, oh, you could have easily made that 60 frame. What the hell? You know what I'm saying? Or like, you know, I don't understand why they can't. And it's like, bro, you don't have a clue on what it is to do.
You could have stopped with I don't understand. You nailed it.
Yeah, that's it. It didn't shut your mouth. You know, again, it just, you know, it's frustrating. And that's the part. We've just devolved into this disrespectful culture and then to each other. Each other. It trickles down like, oh, you know, you don't know what you're talking about. And this is, you know, look, me and you playfully debate, right? We'll have our little master for our Final Fantasy stuff, but it's out of respect. And we all recognize these games are great and whatever. But the personal attacks and all this vitriol, it's just like, it's not that serious. And people lose sight time and time again.
They do. It's getting normalized.
Yeah. Like, this is like, I got a rule. Like, we don't even say that X-bot and I don't even say that on a podcast.
Me neither.
Like, I'm not doing that. Like that to me is just so devolved foolishness. Like I'm not going to be a part of that. So for me, it's like, yo, remember from our era, we come from that games wasn't cool to be a gamer, right? This was this, you know, now it's this unifying thing. We should be like celebrating this unifying thing that brings us together. And this thing that we share, this passion, this love of this thing, picking up control and having fun with friends, we share that. That is completely lost. It's blue versus red, blood versus Crips, and gang banging. I'm just like, bro, like, I'm from the South Bronx. Y'all look like clowns to me. To me, it's ridiculous. So that's the part, you know. And I have to admit, you know, back to your overall point, you know, games media has played a factor into it. You know, they've played a factor. They have blood on their hands.
No, that's true. It's true. I mean, you covered a lot of points that, you know, I obviously agree with and hadn't even thought of at the moment. But you're right. You're right. It's disappointing, right? At the very least, because, you know, think of everything we just talked about and the camaraderie and the brotherhood among gamers. And to your point, just appreciating everything about what every system brings and what every game brings. And it's just, it's very difficult at times on social media to even have that type of conversation because the noise is just so loud from these other things. And I think, you know, my opinion has always been that it's not an opinion, it's a fact, whether people like it or not, because we run the sites and we know how this works. But, you know, those sites who dive into that and kind of just, they don't necessarily go all the way, but they poke. You know what I mean? And they just, they have headlines that are made to do a very specific thing. And it's exhausting. And it's disappointing. And I always tell my youngest that, you know, not that I would ever change his life, right? But I wish he could have experienced gaming when we grew up with his friends, because I know some of his friends are all great kids. And I'm like, if these guys had kind of experienced it in that way, I think they would see it differently. It's just viewed differently today and experienced differently.
No, absolutely, brother. I mean, that's what it is. It's just, like I said, it really bothers me. I'll see, I'll name drop a little bit, but I've seen Matt Pescatella from MPD have to battle people because all he's doing is reporting the sales numbers.
He's reporting numbers.
And these guys,
they're facts.
There's no, I see the guy say, there's no way Gears 5 could have done that way with gamepad. I'm like, what? Reporting the numbers, and these dudes I seen people attack me when we reported how great Grounded was doing on Steam.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, we shouldn't even acknowledge that because it's a PC platform. And I'm just like, bro, you're that angry that it's successful.
Yeah.
Like, how crazy that sounds. Like, you are mad. You are holding a grudge because of your love for one platform. You can't have the success of another platform. Like that, bro. It's just, the tribalism is just so mind-boggling, and I'm just like, man, and
it's like a domino effect. It piles on and builds up because
people click together, and there's a whole bunch of these people all, and I'm just like, yo, I sadly I just had to, and I never was probably for the last 2 years. Like I've just been like block off.
Oh, me too.
I can't, man. I can't. I'm not coming on my timeline with any ad vitriol. Like if you're a friend of mine and we have a friendly debate, that's one thing, but I see people just jump on my timeline, just guns blazing on positive news or games that I'm playing. I'm playing a game. I put a screenshot. You're still playing that trash. And I'm like, what is going on, fam?
Oh, I caught a lot of that for my Cyberpunk glove, and my review. And, I wrote an article about tips to help people. And you get those random people who I have no idea who they are, just jumping on my timeline to tell me how bad the game is that they've never played. Like, what are you? People are out of their damn mind, man. I wonder how they get through the day. You know what I mean?
I don't. It is sad, and to bring it full circle, this is my theory. I could be wrong, but I think because they don't this current generation doesn't have that physical interaction that
I'm 100% with you.
Right?
Yeah, I know where you're going.
No, I'm going. I gotta say because a lot of these dudes, and I don't want to disrespect anybody, a lot of these dudes are looking up to these streamers and these online personalities, and they got, these are not, you don't know these people in real life.
Nope.
You know what I'm saying? Me and you, we met.
Yeah.
Like Ains, we met. We broke bread together. We could do other big things together the following year. Obviously, we saw what happened with the pandemic, but it's like they don't have the social skills, and I think that's the sad reality here. A lot of these guys are in echo chambers. They surround themselves around other people with echo chambers. They have no real life interaction with people, just online. Yes. They form these love attachments or hatreds towards online personalities. Dude, there's some mental stuff going on here, bro. I'm not a psychiatrist.
I'm with you.
Stuff going on here, and it's sad.
Yeah, you touched on it 100%, and it's a great segue. I completely agree with you. And I,
I know we talking like we the old guys in the room, but
we should have filmed this up on the balcony while we were throwing the banner. But the quote that always comes back to me when you were going with the physical thing is, and again, back to the arcade, back to being in school or whatever, is you couldn't spout off like you do today. No, you wouldn't survive.
You wouldn't survive. You wouldn't go for that. You wouldn't even get the words out your mouth for something to happen.
No. It always brings me back to Mike Tyson's quote where he's like, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
You couldn't
It's true.
It's true. It's so true. It's so, like, again, the level of disrespect these guys have.
Yeah, and that's what I mean by normalized, right? I think it's so commonplace, and that people, sadly, of my son's era, my youngest, or even I would say even nowadays, the people in their early 20s, they've grown up in that era where the majority of their discourse, and I use that lightly, is online. Right? Yeah, that's it. It's all day, every day. And so their relationships, their communications, to your point, their admiration for certain people, their dislikes of brands or other people, it feeds and feeds and feeds. And it disconnects them from what it's like to stand in front of someone and
Preach.
Appreciate who that person is as an individual. No,
Preach.
there's nobody. Well, I won't say nobody because there's some crazy people out there, but you know what I mean? A lot of these people who just go off on these rants and tangents to developers about their game and why is the frame rate this or why is there bugs or whatever. Put the developer and the animator and other people in a room with that person and see what they have to say.
See what the energy is.
Yeah, I mean, realize that the person you're attacking, that's just another human being who's doing a job from her company, who goes home at night to a wife or husband who has children. You know what I mean? It's just, it's unbelievable to people.
Unbelievable.
It is.
And the last part I said, even myself, I've never gone out and attacked anyone, right? But it's like, there's been times where I just didn't understand, like, okay, why did that happen in this game or this development cycle?
Yeah.
Like, I get angry because it happened. I won't go on an attack tirade or anyone personal. You'll be surprised when you finally get a hold of these people, whether it's behind the scenes or on a podcast, and they tell you something and they be like, oh, yo, that was crunched in last minute. Yeah. Or let me tell you the story behind this particular act. And you're like, wow, all of this had to happen or didn't happen and you start to realize how game development is. And it's just like, yo, it is so much to it. There's so many moving parts. And we're not even just talking about in the development aspect.
No.
Then you got to fight with the publisher and the deadlines and the this. And there's so many things that is added into that pot. Then what ends up coming out to us. Yes. And that's the thing gamers truly don't understand. That's why one of the questions I always say, and I got Addict to ask them as well, is like, hell, educate us on something that gamers get wrong. I love to hear developers just talk about that. Yeah, a lot of times you guys think X, Y, and Z, and it's not that. And I'm like, really? And it's just those stories are what I live for.
Yeah.
Because again, so much misinformation is out online and such unnecessary vitriol. And the last point I'll make is, I'm from the era where, again, you get that magazine, and yeah, you may have got a magazine and they rated your favorite game lower. They would right? And you're like, oh, okay, it's a 3 out of 5 or whatever. But
yeah,
the amount of emotional connection to these scores and these Metacritics, bro, it's just an outlier. Again, one man's opinion of something, right? If you love that game, nothing, no man or no publication should be able to move you off your square for your passion.
That's right.
I think Destiny, it's not the highest Metacritic game in the world. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, it's like, yes, you can say, okay, maybe they didn't review this aspect, they should have focused more on this, and okay, fine, well, they didn't play that. If you want to critique it and say, there's some things that were missed, that should have been included in regard, that's one thing. But they're taking these overall 90s to the grave, bro. Oh, you got an 84. It's not like, I'm seeing all type of foolish comments, too much emotional connection to a score, and it's like, now it's a bad game now because it's only 80. Like, what?
Well, and you were making the point around it. It kind of affects everything, and you're doing it again now because these scores and the attachment to these scores, right, has also now basically screwed up reviews and opinions of games. Because what I tell the contributors at Seasoned Gaming all the time is, look, we have a 0 or a 1 to 10 scale for reviews. Mm-hmm. That means a 5 is about an average game,
right?
You know what I mean, or 6 in that range, right? For most outlets, it feels like a 6.5, 7 is like your average game. Yeah, you know what I mean. It's like they don't have a 1 to 10 scale. They have a 6.5 to 9.5 scale.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And it's the impact of all these things combined, I think, has really degraded a lot of aspects of it, and it's frustrating.
It is.
It's frustrating.
And last point I make is just that what I've learned, is just, social media, there's a benefit to it as far as promotion and stuff like that. But I've actually learned to peel back some, because at the end of the day, if they've got that much time to be on Twitter 24/7 complaining about this and attacking this and destroying this review, you ain't playing games, bro.
That's right.
You ain't playing. You playing Twitter. You got achievements on Twitter. You got trophies on Twitter. You ain't playing games, fam. And I can see it. And people can say whatever they want, but about me playing, oh, you play Destiny too much. Look at my hours in this game. No one can question that I'm not playing. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing. And that's the thing. And I just miss, King used to say it best, like, no argument. You know what? Let's take this out. Yo, how about we go one-on-one in this? Like, let's take this out here. Yeah. And you build friendships like that. You know what I'm saying? It's just that.
Yeah.
We just got to change the culture. People got to game more, play together more. A lot of this stuff can change, and games media got to do their part also without stoking the flames all the time.
Yeah,
just report, and you're good. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be, all this other extra sensationalism.
Yeah,
stuff.
I know. It's exhausting. I think you touched on something funny there too, where you said, you have a lot of hours in Destiny. And I know I told you my stepson has played it for thousands of hours. One of the things that it took. Let me figure out the way to say this. It's nothing bad. It's a good thing, but it's so it took to realize it. We've heard that before. It's like, we still hear that from people of, okay, some people are like, well, I have, some people chase trophies and achievements. Some people do this, but they'll call you out, like you said, people always giving you crap about Destiny. And, like me and you joke about Destiny, but people will seriously say, he has 1,000 hours in Destiny. You don't play anything else, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, but one of the things I've come to appreciate as I've gotten older too, is just gaming is a hobby for fun. At the core of it, what you should be playing is for fun.
Yes.
And I think that's, if playing one game for 10,000 hours,
gives that person
you're enjoying yourself doing that,
mm-hmm.
There's absolutely nothing wrong. I don't care if your gamer scores 10.
Facts. And they try to shame gamers now. That's the new thing now. They try to shame gamers on achievement score and platinum. Let me pull up his history. He doesn't do. It's like, bro, like,
which is sorry, I was just gonna say it's crazy, right? Because there are people who really enjoy achievements and trophies. I know I have friends too. And if that's fun for you, by all means,
knock yourself out.
Chase it. But I'm just like you. I have, 600 hours in Halo 5. I have like 1,200 hours in Smite over the past 6 years. You know what I mean? These are games that my fun is from playing with my friends.
Facts.
In that ongoing experience.
Facts.
I don't give a shit about achievements.
Exactly. People have to understand that. And the last point is, again from our era, any young boy that pull up on me with that foolishness, here, let's do this. Let's go back to the Coleco vision and pull up more of my achievements on Coleco, Mass System, Turbo. I will lap all of you guys if these systems existed. When I was in my hay, so to speak, you know what I mean? I was doing all this. So again, you can't, you judge people by this score or this, score. Look, if you like to chase that, and I like to chase it for games I love.
Yeah, certain games.
I feel like, I love this game. I need the platinum, or I need to get the 1,000 gamer score because I play this game so much. It's a pride thing because I also want to respect the developer and say, hey, yeah, I did all this stuff. You know what I mean, kind of thing. But it's like, to attack people for like, this is a badge of honor, like you pulling up with your resume, like, bro, you're not getting nothing for that. So it's cool if you're in a competitive space with someone and y'all like to do that. I'm not knocking it. I get it. But again, don't disrespect people if they like certain games. That still makes them a gamer. They're still a gamer. This is what's giving them the most enjoyment, and they are happy, you know what I'm saying, than ever, just doing that thing. And that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Exactly as it should be. I mean, that's what gaming is.
Yeah.
So whatever brings you together, you know what I mean?
Exactly. That's what brought that person in. That's how you got to look at it. Right?
Exactly right. I don't care what they're playing if they're having fun, and that's all. I look at a game like a perfect example for me is Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing has what's it like 30 up to 30 million now, nearly, I'm sure.
At least, yeah.
Best-selling game of last year. It just dominated. All kinds of numbers and stuff. But I've tried that game. It bores me to tears. I just can't play.
It's like, I was like, yeah.
But that's fine, right? I know other people who have put hundreds and hundreds of hours into it. And if that's making them happy, by all means. Why would I ever judge someone for doing something that makes you happy? I mean, that extends outside of gaming. Why would you ever judge anyone?
You see what you just did there? That's the lost art. People can't separate they can't separate something that they don't like that other people like.
Yes, they really struggle with it.
They struggle. Like they cannot give credit. There's so many games that I'm just not into, but I recognize that, this is still a powerhouse, that this is still a major contributor to gaming, and it has a tremendous community.
Final Fantasy VII's that for me, You had
to do the jab. You had to do the jab. But I told Mine's like Mine's is Overwatch. Like me and Bill still will go at it. I'm like, I get it from a team, shooter, cooperative shooter, the balance mechanics, all these different abilities. I get it. My only thing was I could never give it a year without a narrative. That was just me. I was just like, I just wish it had a narrative. I was like, you got all these cool characters. Where they from? What do they do? Can I get an ending? You know what I'm saying? Like, can I get one ending? Like, so he's like, okay, I get what you said. And then when I seen Overwatch 2, whatever, but I don't go out my way to just be disrespectful to the game, because I do understand it was a phenomenon. It was a movement when that thing came out.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the thing, as opposed to, trash. That's the favorite word. Trash.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, nah, like, it's not for me. That's my favorite thing. I'm like, it's not for me.
Nailed
but
it.
I understand why that thing is there and why we need it on the platform. That's the other thing gamers do that I can't stand, which is like, we don't want that trash. We don't want that. Dude, if you want to bring people to your platform, you got to have a diverse lineup of games. And sometimes there's people who will buy a console just for that. So why are you, because you selfish and you just want to play your thing, you don't want nothing else but your thing on the system? Like, don't get me started.
Yeah, but here's the problem, though, is you're using intelligence and logic. That was your first mistake.
Both are. Yeah.
But, when you said it's just not for me, that's exactly how I felt about Death Stranding. So I'm not a huge Kojima fan. I give him crap out of jokes all the time. But I'm just the way he makes games, it's just not enjoyable to you, which is fine. He's still a legend in the industry. It doesn't, my opinion doesn't change that.
Absolutely.
So when Death Stranding came out, and the nonsense that was surrounded that game, right? Dan reviewed it for us, loved it. And exactly what I said is, look, I've watched enough of this game and I know Kojima enough from the way it developed. It's just not for me.
Not for you.
But I'm not out there saying, that game's trash. I don't want that on Xbox. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It just doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't understand it.
It's just, again, it's this over emotional, thing. And I just notice it with this generation of gamers. It's just brand recognition. It's just, they take it on as if it's their personality. It's their, they just, like, their company, and all this other stuff. And
that's we's the funny thing. Well, when I see things like, we got this game, like, who's we? Did you buy a copy? Is it out? So you touched on, in the same line with this, you touched on personalities.
Yeah.
And one of the other things I was thinking about was, going back to the whole gaming media and everything we're discussing right now. And I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit.
Let's go.
A little bit. It's not aimed at anyone in particular. So just a general. But do you think YouTube has played a role in, we keep using the word devolve, but I'll use it again, played a role in devolving our conversations around gaming and specific games?
Yeah, that's a good one, man. I mean, it's tough because obviously I use the platform.
So this is going to be on it. So
we use the platform, and I don't want to go too crazy because I do recognize the importance of it, and it's given a lot of people, financial success. It's given people. I know people who do it full time, and that's the income. Right?
Yes.
It's not my situation, but I know people who it is, and hey, God bless them. They're doing something they love, and they're able to monetize it.
Completely. Same with streaming, for that matter.
Yeah, same with streaming. I think what I noticed is there is the devolving happens to me when you start to see people use tactics to latch on to either bigger content creators to create either drama, straight up attack videos. This is why Ainsley Bowden is wrong. It's the title of the video. Right? This is why. And it's just, again, instead of having a debate, which is basically what I've learned, is just like it's all part of the game. It's all part of this clickbait. It's all part of this whatever they could do to juice the algorithm kind of stuff. And the sad part is you have people who put out amazing content that really is like they spend hours, they do the research, or they'll have these amazing interviews with these legends. And I'm just like, wow, how is this not gaining traction? And it
I know you and I have both experienced that. It happens.
You know, exactly. You know, I there's a couple of interviews I'll be the first to admit here, like that I know how much pain, you know, and effort went into putting something together. And you see it's only natural. Do we live by the view count? But it's only natural to look at the view count sometime, right? And be like, damn, I wish that would have done a little better. Like a little disappointed that gamers didn't, you know, go out and check this out. And I've even seen, shout out to Rob McCall, I've even seen him say he's had like just tremendous series where he has one-on-one with a lot of people in the industry and stuff like that. And you know, I've seen him voice it. And it's just the part where it's devolved. It's just sad that, you know, again, the red versus blue stuff will win. Yeah. The tearing down another content creator will win. The, you know, the just because people are arguing will win. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, I get it. I don't know if it's the short attention span era kind of thing. And I'm almost to the point now where I've become programmed. Like if I have a developer on, expect the views not to be what it is. Like I'm always programmed because I'm like, yo, but my thing is, though, I'm not gonna stop doing it because so many nuggets that I learn, there's so many things that they teach the audience, and I'm never gonna stop that. So to me, it's views is great. Don't get me wrong, that's cool. You know what I'm saying? But our mission is different. You know what I'm saying? So, but I think here's the problem. This is where it evolved. I got it now. I rambled in a circle now.
Oh, you're fine.
Okay. It's when, for some of these guys, it's the paycheck and the only paycheck.
Yeah.
So what has happened is people have thrown away their personal feelings and morals and become characters. And they've become, you know what I'm saying?
Personas.
And personas, which don't necessarily reflect who they really are.
Yeah.
But what's happening is if they be who they really are, and then they say, oh, man, being a TurboGrafx 16 fan ain't really popping right now. These view counts are low, right?
Yeah.
Now, Super Nintendo's popping. I'm just using examples from back in the day as if it was, you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Genesis is it. Let me just make all Genesis content now because this is, look at the views.
Yeah.
That's what it is. So you're not going by what's in your heart. You're going by where that media and that algorithm go.
Yeah.
That's where the devolve again. And then the disrespect. Oh, wow, I disrespected Ains. Look how much views I got. Man, I'm going to get on his neck about Mass Effect 1 every day and make a video. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it is.
It's sad. It just, I don't know how to fix it. I just wish, you know, especially, you know where I'm going. I just wish, like I said, those guys, the algorithm would, you know, kind of help those type of guys that, you know, quote unquote, do it the right way.
Yeah.
Positivity, you know, and really put a lot of effort. You just wish those guys could get the shine they deserve because there's a lot of great content creators, man.
There are.
Yeah.
More than ever, really.
Yeah, a lot. The last point I'll make is, you know, for me personally, my motto, and I've talked this to Attic, being Attic the same way, you know, that's my co-host with a lot of stuff. And I don't care about how many followers or subscribers you have. If I look at your content, I'm like, yo, this is quality, or this is, wow, this guy needs a voice. Like people need to hit, like this is great stuff. You're on the show. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just how it is for me. Like that's what it should be about. And people make business decisions. You know what I'm saying? And that's, you know where I'm going with all this.
You're going to get me all up on a rant here. No, I back on YouTube, I agree with you 100%. And I think it's kind of a similar issue to what we talked about in just gaming media in general, right? Yeah. Sites and social media faces the same type of issues that YouTube faces in a way. But the whole personality aspect drives me nuts. Don't get me started on that. But oh damn, I just had something you got me started on, and I can't remember what the hell it was. Man.
Yeah, I mean that personality stuff. Yeah.
Damn.
Man, you'll get it. You'll get it if it comes back. No, I'm with you, bro. I'm with you. It's just that's permeated, you know.
Yeah.
And the sad part is, guys have learned they can't be themselves because if they be themselves monetarily, it might not work out for them. You know what I mean? They continue down this path, whether it be a negative or supporting something just for the sake of, you know, clicks. That's the popular thing right now. You know what I mean?
You get those other people too that, again, I'm not naming any names, but you get people who, you know, one thing I've always been about is you just like me, I'm sure. When I first got on Twitter, I don't know, my account says like 2014, but I wasn't using it, right? I just created one.
Yep.
So I think when I started back in like 2017, maybe something like that, you know, I have like 20 followers, 30 followers, but people don't give you the time of day. You know what I mean? You try to reach out to anyone to just you know, talk about anything. And to your point is, you know, everyone started from that same spot at some point in time. And it drives me crazy to see some of the people with bigger outlets, bigger channels, what have you, right? Yeah. And they just, you know, they get to that point where it's just like, oh, I'm not talking to you. Like,
look at your subscriber count. You know it go down, Ains. Come on.
100%.
You know it go down.
Oh, trust me, I know.
Oh, yeah. Funny.
He was like,
that's how the neck. Yep, the neck be just like that.
the glasses come down. Yep. Like,
here.
Why is he DMing me?
That's so real, man. So, real.
So you know, it just one thing I've done, right? And by no means am I a big name, but you know, even if I see someone who's new to Twitter, has 20 followers, right? If they make a good point, or I can see that they are not part of this toxic culture we're talking about right online, and they just like talking about games, absolutely, I'm following them, been on smaller shows talking to them, you know what I mean? Because it almost makes it feel like I'm doing my part, as little as it is, to try and bring up what we're talking about, right? Yes, the positivity.
Yeah, guys have told me all the time, like, I've had people say, oh my God, I didn't think you would say yes. I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, God, yo, I'm such a fan. I'm like, dude, I'm humble, but it's you said it best, Ains. We remember how it was for us. We remember, you know, starting your channel, whatever. And, you know, you never want to be that guy that feels like now you've just gotten so big that you can't talk to anybody just the way you were. Because I was the same way. I had like 10 followers and you got to talk to people and people didn't respond. You know what I mean? And then I had people who on the flip side who were tremendous, who gave me opportunities. It was like, oh, come on the show. Like, I like what you're doing. Like, and just help all that stuff. We got to change the culture, man, and help each other and really support and stop. A lot of it comes from, to be honest, you know, a lot of these guys, I hate to say it, but you know, a lot of it is fear. A lot of it is fear of if I allow this person on my platform as the bigger content creator entity, he's going to take my subscribers. And he's, you know, I've been told like some people are threatened, and that's why they play those. Yeah. Because if you got confidence in your content and you love what you're doing, that's all that should matter.
Yes.
You know, you shouldn't have to be worrying about subscriber salary bracket.
It's like an online class system. You know what I mean? It's depressing to me, and I've seen it. Like I said, we're not naming anyone here, but I've seen it. It's just, I look at those people and I'm like, man, you've lost sight of yourself. Yes. And how in the grand scope of things, how little this means.
Facts.
I mean, this is a hobby. We're doing it for fun. Even if it's your financial outlay, which I can understand, you came up the same way.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's just, it's really strange to me.
Real talk.
So I you know, I don't know if you got anything you wanted to touch on. There's one more thing I just wanted to ask you is, and this is more of an open question, but do you miss the days that we grew up in that, not in a nostalgic way, but given all the kind of, you know, benefits of gaming today, and there's many, do you miss the days of going to Toys R Us, looking at that rack of games, pulling out the slip and just getting home and, calling up your buddies and saying, get over here. I got, whatever the game, it's Turtles in Time.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so many memories like that. There's so many, I miss, I want to shout out my dad. I didn't give my dad any credit. My dad is responsible for me, for a gamer. He's literally the one. He's a gamer himself. Him and my mom were separate, but and my mom was very strict on me. But when I went over there, he would allow me to play games. He would take me to the arcade and stuff like that. And I remember getting his Coleco. He gave it to me before he left. He's just like, no, you gotta have it. I used to play that thing. So
you still have it?
Actually, I think I do. I gotta check. I think I still have it in the old spot. I gotta check. I got how it was. I think it's still at the old place. But I remember this stuff, and I just remember besides that, and you having that affection for it, that love for it, and then like you said, I remember the times going to Toys R Us. He takes you, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, yo, let me get this and that. It was just different. I think we appreciated it more. I think the appreciation, I felt was there, and again, and then the camaraderie we talked about consistently. We talked about the camaraderie. We talked about that, the real friendships that people never forget because of these gaming and these communal experiences. So that is huge for me. And just like I said, I know. It's got, there's things that are definitely better and technology is advanced on certain levels and certain way we interact, certain things we do are better in gaming. Yes. Yeah. But, as far as a community, I feel the community back then I preferred, what I'm saying? It was just way more communal. It was a different energy. And the only thing now that I feel is different, it's just that people get information fast, whatever. And I think people don't appreciate games as much as they used to now. Like when they get something, it's almost like fast food in a way, in some aspect.
Yeah, there's so much of it, and it's so easily accessible that it's. I honestly believe that's why we get so many people who just don't finish games today, is because there's so many of them, you have access to so many of them at all times that you just don't appreciate having it.
Right. And me and Salvas had this conversation. I want to veer left. Don't get him. This is me. This is Cog speaking for himself. Do not get Ainsley in trouble. There was a mod scene at one point. And I remember when we got involved for a little bit. I was going to say that. And it was funny. I would have this pamphlet of CDs of all the latest games. Right. And you had whatever came out, I had it.
Yep.
I had less of appreciation. I didn't finish stuff. Again, it was a difference. It was something mentally than when that didn't exist. And I went and I bought something, and it was just a different type of connection. When I had it, I realized I wasn't gaming as much. You know what I mean? And then obviously those methods got stomped by the game company.
Yes.
Things went back to normal. But you know what I'm saying? I do remember that it was a brief era. I remember that happening.
Oh, big time.
Yeah. And I was just like, yo, I'm not playing. Why is that? You know what I mean? And I think that's what it is. And I think that's the only negative now, because again, it's so much saturated, so many game companies, so many things. And I don't want to, trash services or anything like that. But you know what I'm saying? When you have so much of an abundance, sometimes people don't appreciate as much as they. That's the only thing. Sometimes I miss that when there was a wait. That's why I don't get mad when there's a game delay. I
don't get mad either. That's funny. Yeah, that's funny. It doesn't bother me one bit.
I'm like, awesome. I got this great bag. I got all this to play, that to play, this to do, that to do.
It's endless.
Yes.
I mean, they could not release a game for another, who knows how long, and I could still be playing new games for years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's funny though. I think for me, you nailed it on the head when you said that the culture. I think the culture is different. That's what if I had to point to one thing I missed, compared to back then, it's the culture. Absolutely. I miss that camaraderie. It's just not the same now. And the sad thing is, you can't, for the people, I would say maybe late 20s and younger, right? Mm-hmm. You can't even describe to them. You can't describe it.
Foreign.
It doesn't add up because it's not something they've ever experienced. And obviously mentally, you just can't fathom something you've never experienced. So
absolutely.
It's a shame.
Yeah, man.
But, well, man, it has been an absolute honor as always, man. You know, I just love chatting games with you. That's why I had you on this premiere kind of episode in this vein, if you will.
Love it.
But I hope you had a good time. And
bro, it's just fantastic. You know, bro, we could have went off. We still went off. Well,
yeah, we could. The only reason I got to stop is because I need to eat something at some point. So.
Dude,
but no, hopefully, you know, if we can get past, as we keep saying, right, we can get past COVID. Hopefully, we can start to formulate those plans we had previously.
Exactly.
Really make some good content. So
that's the difference. Real community. That's the difference.
Right. Yeah, because see, I look forward to that. I know there's a lot of people who are, you know, just perfectly content talking to their friends online and playing. And I keep saying, don't get me wrong, I love that.
Yeah.
But I really, really, truly missed going to E3 this year and getting to hang out with you guys and be there in person and just share drinks and stories and. You know what I mean? Like that's the heart of it for me. It always will be. That'll never change.
I just started something last point. I shout out to Stubbs. I was on this show, and
definitely check out Stubbs. He had both Cog and I on the past couple of weeks.
Great guy, and he asked me a question. He challenged me. I had to think. And he was just like, "What aspect do I enjoy as a content creator the most?" And he was kind of like, you know, when we do the podcast, we don't stream, whatever.
Yeah.
And I really thought about it, and I said, you know what? It is going to the conventions. It is going to the E3. It is interviewing the developers, getting the thing getting that hands-on, physical, in the flesh interactions. That's what is more important to me. Don't get me wrong. I love the podcast. I love being on shows, running our mouth, having fun. But there's a different energy when you really there in the flesh amongst your peers, your gaming brothers and sisters. Like it's different. It's like a fraternity. It's like a community. You know what I'm saying? And it's just, I love it. And again, just the convention aspects, the whole ambiance of it too as well. So yeah, like that was that. I actually had to admit, like that's my favorite aspect. You know what I'm saying? As far as content creation and stuff like that.
Yeah. No, I'd have to agree with you. And I think that harkens back to everything we've talked about.
We talked about it. It come full circle. Yep.
Yeah, it's full circle. Because I would say that's probably the only modern experience that comes close to replicating what we had in the past.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. And trying it out in the flesh next to somebody. Like,
exactly. Standing right there. Yeah. Someone you don't know, but you're sharing that experience together.
Facts.
Yep. Facts. Yeah. Man. It's been great, man. Honestly, we can do this all the time because I love talking games with people who have that same sense of gaming history and appreciation and culture. And I know we talk about that all the time, but hey, it is what it is. So
for real. Mm-hmm.
So where can before we get out of here, why don't you not that anyone watching this doesn't know you or where to find you, but go ahead and shout it out anyway, man.
Listen, man, absolute pleasure, man. Ains, I love this series. This is fun. Keep this up. I think you think you got something going on right here. I definitely want to support it, and I was glad to be on the premiere.
Yeah, premiere, man.
Bringing that back, man. But yeah, man, at Lord Cognito on Twitter, and Iron Lord Podcast on YouTube. LordsOfGaming.net is the website. A lot of content. Like I said, we try to celebrate those in the industry. Yes. Try to do it positive. We have our fun. We have our jokes. Yes. But at the end of the day, it's about gaming. It's about celebrating gaming, being passionate about gaming. And man, other thing, last word, if you're into Destiny, that's our Friday show. You can check that out again on Iron Lord Podcast. If you're into statues, you got my brother King David, with the king of the statues, always doing tremendous things in the statue comics gaming community. So check that out. And yeah, man, this has been tremendous. It's been a lot of fun. Really enjoyed it, man. We could talk for hours, but you, my gaming brother from another mother, man. We had
Sega brothers for life. See, Sega bonded us, man.
Sega bonded us, bro. We know the pain. We know the struggle. We see greatness. You know what I'm saying?
So huge shout out to you guys. You really do cover a lot, and I think the work you do with covering indie developers, speaking to people in the industry, and covering those aspects is really underappreciated. It is. So I think it's awesome what you guys are doing. I love to see the growth. Love to see everything else. Obviously, King and I talk statues, here and there. And we still joke that one day we're going to get together and do something joint. But I had someone joke with me a couple weeks ago about, all my statues. And He said, "Man," he didn't say king, but he said something. I was like, "No, that's David over there. He's the king. I'm the prince." And Diego's like, "Yeah, you're the prince." I was like, "That's fine."
He said he's the prince of statues.
Prince of statues. I'll take it. It's fine. But man, it's been an honor. Obviously, we'll have you on again, and we'll be doing stuff in the future. So
you know you're coming in the realm on the Lord's Day. You know we bringing you back. Have that nice intelligent discussion that I appreciate, balanced perspectives that I
love. And we'll do that Mass Effect.
Exactly.
We'll do that Mass Effect show soon. I mean, it's already been answered, but we can talk about it.
I'll get you Mass Effect 1 Heretics on.
All right, man. You have a good night. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and watching. This was kind of industry perspective chat, the first premiere episode with Lord Cognito. And thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening if you're listening later. And stay tuned for other guests in the future. Cheers.
Peace.